Meet Benjamin. He's a great guy who likes to hang out with his friends. He especially loves to play ultimate frisbee with his club team, the Flying Saucers. Since he's the responsible one in the group, it falls on his shoulders to pull everything together. But getting people to pay on time feels like herding cats. Before the season even starts, Ben is already out a couple $100. The good news is that when the Saucers win, they go celebrate. But splitting a bar tab among 12 people isn't any easier. Ben's been dating Annie for about a year. That's her. They met playing frisbee, and they want to move in together. Every once in a while, Annie writes Ben a big check for expenses, like the barbecue they just bought. They're tired of writing checks to each other, but they don't want to sign up for a joint bank account. BankBox will make it easier for you to do the things you love with your friends. BankBox is a social escrow app. Just create an event, fund your account, and invite your friends to pool their money. Whether it's for organizing a bachelor party, planning a road trip, or managing a fantasy football league, BankBox is simple and secure. But mainly, it means you'll never have to remind people to pay you back.
I'm Harris, and that's my brother Nathan. We're honored to have had the opportunity to compete in the Chicago Lean Startup Challenge. We're especially grateful for all of your help throughout and for our mentors for helping us get up to speed and move forward along the way. This is a story of BankBox. It started when me and my girlfriend got a dog together. The puppy was really beautiful, and so we decided we needed to get pet insurance to make sure that everything was okay if anything were to ever happen. Turns out, though, that pet insurance is a little bit expensive, and so I thought to myself, you know what, like we could do this. We could save $10 a month, and you know, when something happens, we'll be prepared. As it turns out, it was actually really difficult to do that without having a bank account together that we could save money into. Realizing how strange it was that it was difficult for me and my girlfriend to save money for our dog together, my brother and I started BankBox. Our hope was to build a way for groups of people, not just individuals, to do things together involving money. But all we had was an idea. We signed up for the Lean Startup Challenge, and we took your advice and we got out of the building. In short time, we did 61 semi-structured qualitative interviews with people, some on the streets, some at Starbucks, some at DePaul University, some at IIT. Some interviews were longer than others. And we started towards the end, we did 6 interviews with experts and potential partners. Before we jump in, we want to talk about the mobile payment space. It's probably no surprise, but it's on the verge of blowing up. According to Ernst & Young, the worldwide market for mobile payments in 2014 will be around $245 billion with a B dollars. We realize, of course, that social and group payments are only a portion of this. But on the other hand, it's worth noting as well that Venmo, a competitor in this space, just sold for $26 million. On day one, we started with the idea that groups are different from people. Although we sign into things on the internet with just a username and password, probably for fraud reasons, we figured there's such a thing as group banking. People do things together and there's money involved. So we had a vague idea that the internet needed a way for groups to do online what they actually do offline. So here's what we did. We came up with a bunch of possible hypothetical solutions, and then we got out of the building and we ran them by people. We really wanted to know, what in fact were the problems that people had in this space. Was there anything that made them particularly uncomfortable with mobile banking? And generally, if we were onto something. So here's one concept that we made up. We called it card splitter. The idea was you could go to a restaurant and one person pays with their phone and it automatically charges the bill divided equally to everyone else. In fact, people hated it. Double in fact, it turns out this actually exists in a variety of different ways. But we learned a lot, and we learned a lot really quickly. For one, we found out who we were talking about, our customer segment. Turns out it's not just everyone. We found that there was a really ideal range of 18 to 30-year-olds. People under 18 tended to sort of still depend on their parents financially. People over 30 are either too rich to care about fronting money or losing money or borrowing money, or we saw that they were afraid of the risk of mobile banking, and so they just do it on their computers. We also found the what, our value proposition. We came in thinking we weren't going to solve a problem. We were going to create an enjoyable experience that was so pleasant people couldn't stop using it. Turns out, though, we actually found a morphine problem, which is that fronting money sucks, especially if you're someone just out of college. We also found our when. So here's what we did next. We came up with a more detailed version of our concept, and then we compared it to other competitors in this space. And of course, we got out of the building and we did more interviews. We found that two concerns stood out among the rest, and that's that people wouldn't use anything in mobile banking, mobile payment space if it wasn't both extremely simple, meaning like as easy as using cash, and also very secure. We also found that we needed to be focusing on solving problems for individual people, organizers of groups, and not sort of groups as a whole. And the reason is that organizers are the people that feel the pain. Everyone else sort of just goes along until the last minute, but it's the organizer that has to figure out who's confirmed. It's the organizer who has to front money for people and risk not getting it back. And then it's the organizer that has to sort of ask people at the end, to pay them back. This works out really well because it means that we benefit from extremely strong network effects. If we can solve a pain point for an organizer, he becomes an instant ambassador for us and recruits his friends and the other people in his group to join BankBox. We're also worried that fraud was going to be a problem, and that's probably part of the reason why banks make it so complicated to sign up. But what we noticed is that when we left out information about how funds were protected, it became very apparent that friends were eager to police their group's pool of money. And what that means is that we can expect to avoid fraud rates like those in the traditional banking industry because this is sort of socially policed. That said, we realize that this is actually a tremendous challenge because the social norms around trust and around who can withdraw money are extremely complicated to get right. And lastly, we realized that our biggest challenge wasn't just to identify product solution fit, but really is that we're going to have our biggest hurdle is getting people to discover the application. It became very obvious that this space is extremely crowded, and so at this point, we're starting to think about how we can innovate in the customer acquisition space. We're in the middle of a 2-week landing page and AdWords campaign to test and validate our different messages. It's still really early, but as you can see from the metrics from Unbounce, we're experiencing pretty solid conversion rates. It's especially early to look at our AdWords campaign, but it does seem pretty clear that our messaging and what we thought were the use cases that we confirmed in the field may not necessarily be the things that people are searching for most on Google. We've also been thinking about customer acquisition in order to verify that this isn't going to be cost prohibitive, that growth isn't cost prohibitive. And so our sense is that we can grow largely organically via targeted niche campaigns. For example, we can imagine sending a message to people on Twitter who mention the words commissioner and football to target highly valuable potential users. We're focusing on getting people to discover our app and to build a product that fits people's needs. That said, we envision a pretty clear path to growth because we're highly viral. Every organizer that we get to sign up becomes an immediate advocate for us. It's still early, but here's a rough cash flow model. Taking the growth we showed you in the previous slides and then adding in a retention rate of around 40%, we can start to think about what our revenue and what our costs might be. Assuming a low interest rate on holdings, an average balance of about $40 per user, a $100 yearly premium fee for features like unlimited people in your group or unlimited groups that you can create, and then maybe a per event fee of $1, we can expect a per user profit of around $2.50, including the cost of customer acquisition and more significantly customer service. Given the growth we talked about, and assuming that in 6 trimesters, or what normal people call a year and a half, we can start to take a portion of processing fees for payments made directly from our app, we expect that in year 3 we'll make a profit of around $1 million. This does exclude overhead. Our task next is to build an MVP and also develop a strategy whereby we can launch to learn. Broadly speaking, this involves recruiting, it involves raising angel funds, partnering with developers and with banks. Our target is to be up in 6 months. Many, many thank yous. We look forward to hearing from you.